Okay, I believe, hopefully, this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series. But the QA, that's the important part, obviously stands for question and answers. We like to make this a more interactive conversation. We like to go through the last week of news. Maybe some news broke over the weekend, like a massive launch from Xiaomi. Maybe MWC is kicking off as we speak, and I'm West Coast time, so all of the major announcements have already been covered to death. Because I don't know about y'all, but trade show coverage has been a little. JJ4884, you sound great. Thank you very much. I don't know what's going on. Again, so usually when I'm playing that intro music, I can hear it from Restream and I'm getting no audio back. So there's like literally no way for me to monitor what I might sound like. I did fire up the Twitch stream on a phone just to kind of hear if anything was staticky or garbled. I have a little time left on my Restream subscription, and I feel like at this point I've got a working solve for how spotty the service has been. And then after that is up, I'm gonna switch over to. I think I'm gonna go to StreamYard. It is so much more expensive, but after the experience I had trying to get tech support for them, where they just kept saying like, "Well, it must be a problem on your side," and they're like, "I've changed mics, I've changed inputs, I've done all these things that you've told me to do," and then when I go back to the original stream, sometimes it sounds great and sometimes it doesn't, and that kind of inconsistency cannot be a problem with my setup when everything else works. So unfortunately, I just don't know. It's working this week. It might not work next week. It's a party and everyone's invited. So first of all, I hope everybody out there has had a lovely weekend. We had a lovely weekend. Lex is feeling a little under the weather, but she still went to a softball game and I just did a tremendous job, like rising to the occasion. I was really proud of her. Like you can tell when your kid's not 100%, but she didn't want to skip the game. I think this is more allergy based. Unfortunately, I think she has my nose, which really sucked. No, I mean like literally, like the shape of it is kind of like my nose, but internally, we are both wildly susceptible to changes in pollen. And we get a little rhinitis whenever the pollen count shifts up. We spend a couple days in hell, and then we kind of acclimate, and then it's just sort of a more comfortable medium until the next change happens. But anyway, she was like looking a little run down. She's in all of her catcher's gear. She's kind of trudging out on the field, and then you could see she was really digging deep to try and make plays, to try and stop balls, try and stop runners. And then she would trudge back to the dugout. It was like every moment of activity she was like working as hard as she could for full power, and then the second the play was done is you just see this poor little 9-year-old just deflate. So that was our weekend. It was a really nice weekend. So we had a game on Saturday, and then all day Sunday I was like, hey kiddo, if you just need like an hour of Minecraft time and then sleep on the couch, just do that. And she got a little rest after that, so it was pretty great. We have a wild news block to cover, and I have a bunch of Xiaomi gear that I have not yet published anything publicly on the Xiaomi 15, this new Xiaomi tablet that I can't remember what it's called. It's like Xiaomi 7S Pro LMNOP edition. And I even have some Xiaomi earbuds. All of these are in production pipeline. All of these will eventually be coming to the main channel. And hopefully, so this is what's funny. I was working with a different PR agency last year that was covering Xiaomi, and they promised. One of the reasons why I did not have a lot of public coverage on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is because I never got one. But I was on the list. They guarantee I was going to get one of those phones. I actually held an update to my photography book because I try to do every year, every other year. So, like, update passages in the book. I need to do a wild rewrite on camera interfaces just because that section is wildly out of date now. I held an update of that book because I wanted to work in some commentary on phones with variable apertures and multiple camera sensors, and that was going to be the flagship. I mean, like I told them, I'm publishing something, and highlighting your product as one of those crown jewel solutions. And then it just never happened. And so the PR company working with Xiaomi today did the exact same thing. Oh, we're going to send you this, and we're going to send you that, and you're definitely going to be on the list. And then it became a, well, we might have one for you. We'll check when we're back from MWC. I don't know what it is. Like, very few channels will consistently add commentary to these kinds of products. Like, last year, the Vivo was in almost all of my videos in some way, shape, or form. The Vivo X100 Pro was literally the B-roll camera that I used for most of last year. And like, hey guys, I could be doing the same thing with this, and you'd be featured in this photography book, and I'm on the list. So I have no idea if I'm going to be getting an Ultra. And it's very frustrating because I maybe would have just tried to import one, but they strung me along for so long that by the time I could have gotten one, or I should have gotten one, it wouldn't have been profitable to cover. Like, that's what really frustrates, is that, like, there's about a week left of the Xiaomi 15 Ultra doing good traffic. And as much as I appreciate, like, I've got a great crew of people here in the live chat right now. I still have some kind of viewership on YouTube. Like, by the time I get it, that will have been exhausted. And a bunch of people doing really lazy side by side camera comparisons will have sucked all the wind, sucked all the air out of that conversation. So it's kind of a bummer. So, anyway, we have a lot to cover here, but I'm going to, you know what? Let me just jump into some housekeeping because we have a lot of housekeeping to chew through. And then we have a lot of articles to chew through, and I really want to, like, gadget block at the end of this podcast and talk Xiaomi and then some of the other fun stuff. Like, if anyone has seen some stuff from MWC, I want to owe some time to that. So, this always fails, but I'm a speed round housekeeping. Let's see how long I can do this. 9:08 in the AM. That's actually pretty good for one of my intros. And let me screen share this right now. And Simon, exactly that. If they just said, no, you're not going to get one, I would have made different arrangements. But they kept saying on the list, on the list, on the list, and then I never got one. It's really frustrating. It's super annoying. So, you're looking at my Twitch page right now. That's not what we need. A major public publish. I am so taken with these headphones. I have the Metse 105 AER open back headphones, battling planers, question mark. I am wildly trying not to turn my channel into an audio review channel. Tech is so frustrating right now that I'll pull up a new pair of headphones and just go, you know what? I could just spend the next week of my life only talking about this. And I need to be really careful that I don't just slide. These reviews do garbage traffic. It's really frustrating. We are in an audio renaissance right now. And people are still like, I don't know, these like $150 Bluetooth earbuds are pretty good, I guess. And there's something happening in the premium mid-range in cabled headphones in that $300 to $500 window, which sounds like a lot for cabled headphones. But when you are looking at a gadget that fulfills one kind of entertainment and you put them on your skull and you listen to the detail and articulation and color and presentation and soundstage, it is magical. Like, what's happening in this range, and that's what the Metse are trying to do. They are a very unique headphone solution that is set to do battle with some of my all-time favorite kinds of headphones and doing things that are very impressive. And it's a shame because I think a lot of people are missing out. Now that you've got like AirPods Pro Max mega edition, and the idea of spending over $100 for a pair of headphones is no longer outlandish. We are at in an age where the audio technologies that are filtering down into this mid pack price are the kinds of audio listening experiences that I used to have like for over 1,000. It's it's pretty wild. So that review is out right now. You can be one of the 1,000 people on a channel with 175,000 subscribers that has always covered audio. You could be one of the 1,000, the less than 1% who have actually seen that review. Moving to the Patreon, I have a 22-minute video on the Xiaomi 15 that is not a review. We're going to be talking about the 15 later in this podcast. And Xiaomi made me redo all of my testing and benchmark work the day of the announcement. And we all knew they were going to do that. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later too. Just the performance and the expectations. Like, what should a reviewer do with a new phone so that they can talk about what performance is like on a new phone? Because I feel like a lot of tech reviewers probably just praised, oh, the Xiaomi 15, and it's got the Snapdragon 8 Elite, so it must be the fastest. And if they really tested it, it was kind of garbage during the embargo. But we can talk about that in greater detail. Moving right along, I also have this video out. This is going to be a really fun primer. It's a 23-minute video, what you need to know about smart glasses and why Apple keeps failing at them. I'm trying to do just some more roundups and primers on different optical technologies. Again, outside of headphones, one of the other things that I'm most excited about are putting displays on my face, and that there are different reasons to use different displays. I'm telling you right now, I'm setting aside budget not for another laptop or for another PC review this year. If a Snapdragon X Elite 2 comes out, I'll see if I can score a review unit or something. I really do want to cover what's going on with ARM PCs. But the big expenditure that I'm planning later in the year is if Valve releases a new VR headset. Because I am already seeing headlines about how if Valve releases Deckard, the code name for their VR headset, it's gonna be too expensive. Did you know the Valve Index was a $1,000 headset? And Deckard might be like a $1,500 headset. And that's too much monies. That's too expensive. You can buy a Quest for like $400. And so you can't Deckard be too much costs. Please ignore that a Vision Pro is $3,500 and that Facebook is a miserable company that's ripping off all of your data and like supporting genocide around the world. And that's what you're paying sort of a subsidized price for, is for them to suck up all your user data. And Valve has shown time and time and time and time again that they're a much better company to do business with. But sure, a premium high quality headset might be a little costly. Oh no. So anyway, I'm trying to get ahead of some of those conversations. From heads-up displays to cinema glasses to VR headsets, I'm trying to keep a broad view on displays you can wear on your face. And then wrapping up housekeeping, I had one other article. The OnePlus 13 camera conclusion, treading water in a sea of downgrades. Now, hot take. I like the cameras on the OnePlus 12 a tiny bit better than I like the cameras on the OnePlus 13. Would you like to know more? Well, there's a handy article on patreon.com/somegadgetguy that will help illuminate that post. So, all of the articles, all of the housekeeping, all of the news pieces, everything that we're going to be talking about this week will be available on this week's show notes on somegadgetguy.com. That's been the best place to kind of keep all the links. I had major trouble over the last, I mean, it really started about 4 weeks ago, but like my RSS feeds were not updating. I was having all these problems trying to figure out what the feeds were. Enclosures weren't syncing up. So you'd see, like, if you had my podcast in a podcast app, you would see this like entry for it, and then there'd be nothing to download. And so I've slowly but surely been stripping out, like, well, if I point the RSS feed here and then take out these links, then it seems to populate. And I think I just have way too many links in every podcast page. So instead, I'm trying to keep the enclosure very specific. The place to go is to go to my blog, somegadgetguy.com, because I really do want you to read these stories. It's not just me telling you about the headline and reading a paragraph and you being informed. That's not being informed. My position here is just to kick off a conversation. And we have some great conversations here in the chat, but we want to expand on that and make sure that we're really keeping up to date as these stories evolve, because some of these stories play out over years. I mean, there are some things here that we've been talking about since the inception of this podcast, and they are continuing conversations in the worlds of technology and politics, consumerism. We want to make sure that we actually know, not that we think or feel. We want to have better data. When we have better data, we do better. So let me get this out of the way. JJ4884, me groans in inflation. Yeah, I mean, so here's what's wild. We are seeing the crossing axes of inflation versus technological progress. Because as tech progresses and improves, it should fall in price as we get better at manufacturing these capabilities. So think about the Valve Index was a $1,000 headset when it launched years ago. And that was a really pricey headset, super huge optical quality, used LCD panels instead of OLED to combat that pentile subpixel arrangement, but you needed to plug it into a really beefy PC, and it had satellite sensors that you had to put around your room. If all of the rumors come through on Deckard, we're probably not going to see a wild resolution increase, but it's going to be a standalone headset, which means it has its own compute power built in. And even though we have much less spending power per dollar, as inflation has climbed since the release of the index, a 50% price increase over the original index while the dollar is weaker than when the index came out is actually pretty remarkable, to go from a standalone from a tethered headset that needed satellites to a standalone headset that can plug into a PC or work as its own computing device. I am so excited to give Valve $1,500 for a standalone Steam Deck PC gaming VR experience that I can just put on my face for when I want to sweat and get some Beat Saber done. I'm there for it. I'm here. Let's do it. Simon says Hypno. Exactly. I have these headlines all wrong. Just wait another 13 years for Apple to do it right. Don't think of buying anything else. Apple has been working on, if you believe the articles that came out shortly after the release of Google Glass, Apple has had patents and has been working on displays since 2006. 19 years. And the best they could come up with is a bulkier mixed reality headset than the Microsoft HoloLens. The Microsoft HoloLens was slimmer, sleeker, was actual AR, and didn't have a soap on a rope battery. We've given Apple 19 years, and they can't make smart glasses, and they failed at mixed reality. I am here for Deckard. I am here for Valve. All right, so we're going to jump in. First of all, I just want to wish everybody a happy World Hearing Day. Today, literally today, March 3rd of the year 2025, World Hearing Day is a day that we talk about hearing health and hearing loss and prevention, and I'm going to be sharing links to some of my 2020 hearing videos over the course of the day across social media. I feel this is another one of those happy reminders. Treat your ears well, and you will have a happier life for it. If you are genetically predisposed to certain types of dementia, then there's a strong correlation between hearing loss and rates of brain degradation situations later in life. So it's not that hearing loss causes different forms of dementia, but they seem very, very well linked. And I don't know about you, but I kind of like my brain working better So I'm trying to treat my ears better. I recently published that review on the B-Bird, so you can clean your ears out. I have videos about how your ears work, how to size different ear tips for your ears, what to do if your ears are too small. Like my wife has tiny, tiny little pixie ear canals, and traditional earbuds will not fit in her ears. So I'm gonna be posting some of those videos, but generally, this is a good time to like bring it up with your family. Like share this as a link with your family and friends. Just like, isn't it so funny? Today's World Hearing Day. Anyway, what are you doing with your headphones? And maybe turn them down. Maybe I care about your ears and your brain. So that's I don't know. Maybe you don't care about your family or friends. Maybe that's the hook for you. I don't. I can't speak to your relationships. Okay, so World Hearing Day is today. Moving right along, we have this is a lawsuit. I actually this last week wasn't super heavy for practical tech politics. A lot of the things that are coming out now with our current presidential administration, I haven't been covering as much just because it's all just chaos. What we're looking at when it comes to, oh, they're going to do this, oh, that didn't work, but then they're going to do that, and then they pulled that back, and oh, they're going to do this, and they're going to walk that back, and really there's no conversation there. It's just whiplash, and it's to keep us confused, it's to keep us anxious, it's to exhaust us because we're constantly talking about something and then it doesn't happen, and then someone else comes up, see, that didn't happen, so you're going to be totally fine when the next thing doesn't happen. And that's not an earnest conversation. And I'm really tired of dealing with non earnest people in those kinds of conversations. But one of the things that has been a continuing issue that's been evolving, I think we do need to spend more time, and I think we need to make more of an effort to talk about environmental impact with new technologies. I think we should be more grown up about this than we have been. I don't believe in the old mantra Silicon Valley, move fast and break stuff. I think that's a really immature way to look at a mature tech focused consumer electronics ecosystem. I think we're dealing with mountains of e-waste. I peeked in just a little bit on El Jefe's stream. He was just, just kind of shooting the poop with a bunch of headphone and earbud junkies, and he's rightly bringing up, like, hey, you hold up a pair of Bluetooth earbuds, count on that being about 2 years. If you get more than 2 years, that's great. That's gravy. You're doing awesome. Be really happy if you get more than 2 years. But you get tiny little batteries, a trio of tiny little batteries, that might be 2 years. So that really expensive $200 premium Bluetooth earbud purchase, you're going to make another one in another 2 years. And then in another 2 years, you might need to swap those out again or get them replaced, or maybe there's a warranty and you can kind of tap that. But all of those basically just end up being e-waste. Whereas I have portable monitors, in-ear monitors, that are now, when did I start doing location work? In like 2010? So yeah, they're like 15 years old. I have mixing headphones that are old enough to buy liquor. I have microphones that are classics, that are that should be out of grad school. So this story came up because I thought it was kind of interesting when we see these kinds of lawsuits. So this is coming by way of WCCF Tech. That's where I caught this article, this story first, written by Ali Salman. Apple is being sued over false carbon neutral claims, with consumers stating they would not have purchased the devices if they knew the truth. When Apple launched, all right, let me highlight this so that you guys can see it. When Apple launched the Apple Watch Series 9, SE, and the Ultra 2, it claimed that the devices were carbon neutral. The company appears to be facing a lawsuit from consumers who state that its claims are false and misleading. The lawsuit has been filed in the United States District Court for the Northern District of California, and it argues that the iPhone maker misinterpreted the environmental impact of the Apple Watch models. Reuters reports that consumers are filing a lawsuit against Apple, claiming that its latest wearables are not carbon neutral and that it is misleading users of the environmental impact by relying on carbon offset projects that do not reduce the carbon footprint. And I really want to make this point clear. And this is how horrifically disappointed I am in humanity. The transgression here is not the wild damage to the environment. There is no law against this kind of manufacturing process, right? We all depend on global supply chains. We tend to try and put pollution in poorer regions of the world. It's kind of like an environmental racism. I'm getting a little heavy-handed here, but I mean that's what happens. We covered a while back when the AP was sharing those news location photos, those news. What do you call those? I don't. I'm talking about it like it's a film set, and it's not a film; it's real life. But going to villages in Africa where the entire community is built on breaking down Western e-waste and trying to reclaim rare earth elements out of it, and that just sends tons of toxic materials into their water and tons of pollutants up into the air because the best way to break down a motherboard is to literally set it on fire. That's not, we don't legislate any of that. I mean, we do, but we don't really enforce anything in a serious enough way that it would change business models, right? Maybe it becomes a tax. Oh no, you've got to pay a fine on all those iPhones that are purposely disposable and planned obsolescence. Hey, Apple, we'll fine you 5 million whole dollars for 10 years worth of iPhone shenanigans. This lawsuit is coming up because of advertising. That's what the big transgression is that Apple made a commercial and the claims in their commercial are turning out to not be true. That's what we're upset. Truth in advertising. That's how we're taking them down. To me, it's a little like when you've got a mob boss and everyone knows that they're a mob boss and they're killing people around the community and they're engaged in manipulating markets and racketeering and stealing. And you know what we threw him in prison for was tax evasion. He wasn't paying his taxes, so that's how we got Capone. So this is what really breaks my heart, what really breaks my soul. Samsung did something similar years back. They made this big ad campaign about the labor that they were using for manufacturing, and it turns out that that was completely not true. So Samsung wasn't in trouble because they were using kind of terrible labor practices and almost slave labor in some of these camps to build their phones. That wasn't the problem. The problem is that they advertised that they weren't doing that. Oh, and their ad turned out to be a lie. We are so upside down and backwards in these kinds of conversations. We are failing because at some point we need to tell massive tech manufacturers, all of them, that doing the R&D, doing all the testing, doing all of the manufacturing and distribution, and getting the product into consumers' hands is not the end of your relationship. It needs to be on the manufacturer to deal with the end of life. And if you can't build that into your business model, then you don't deserve to do business. Because right now, it's on consumers and on local governments, not even like full state governments. Like California has a whole bunch of ordinances and you pay more when you buy a TV because they're assuming that there's some kind of like e-waste disposal associated with that. So that's on the backs of consumers. That's on us. So yes, what I'm proposing will absolutely just get passed down to consumers, but it needs to be on the company. So when they run afoul and they say, hey, oh, we're totally carbon neutral and it's easy to recycle and blah, 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 and that turns out to not be true, they'll actually face some kind of pushback more stringent than a class action lawsuit of people who are upset that a commercial wasn't true. Commercials are what pass for tech education today. It's the marketing. Think about all the people in your circles of family and friends and what research do they do when they go to buy something new? Are they really going through websites and videos and all this stuff? Or are they just sort of generally aware of a fog of commercials and that's what passes for their education? So, whatever Apple says turns out to have completely outsized influence on consumer purchasing behavior because I mean, who's really going to look up the specs on that new watch? I mean, who's really going to try and do a deep dive on what it's like to use? And am I going to go with the Apple Watch with my iPhone, or maybe I'll get a Fitbit? You know, like that doesn't happen. That produce, absolutely. We are too insulated from the deeper issues of tech around the world. Um, from Bradley Larcher, but they got Mother Nature's nod of approval. Apple made the commercial, so Mother Nature must be cool with it. And for Michael C, oh wait, is that, there we go. For Michael C, I'm done spending much money on true wireless earbuds. You're basically renting them for a year because of their shelf life is so low. And especially if you start buying some that are a little older. You don't know if they've been sitting around for a bit, those batteries in like a half charge or maybe even in a discharged state, you'll get even less time of ownership with that. I'm really upset. I'm still trying to figure out what went wrong. I love my Bear Dynamic. These are the Bird earbuds, BYRD. They're not working. And a part of that is like one of the earbuds doesn't seem to hold a full charge. It says it's fully charged and then it drops really quickly as you start using them. And then the other earbud is having issues with tap commands. And you're like, you know what? These were really expensive true wireless earbuds. I'm just not enjoying that experience. Whereas I can pull out something like my FIO, my BTR7, absolutely still a problem, right? It's got a battery and it's Bluetooth, but I can use it over a USB-C cable. And then I can pick some wild earbuds and headphones to use with that little Bluetooth DAC. And the price of that is pretty close to just a really good pair of Bluetooth earbuds. But I'm preaching to the choir right now. We got to keep moving because our second Apple story coming by way of GSM Arena, who wrote this up? They cite their sources, which I love to see that they cited their sources, but I have no idea who wrote this article. But it's on GSM Arena. It's in this week's show notes. Sorry, folks. Here, let me click this over. Apple explains why the iPhone 16e doesn't have MagSafe. So Apple released just the stupidest, most expensive poor person phone they could have. Apple says it decided not to equip the iPhone 16e with MagSafe because, quote, most people in the 16e's target audience exclusively charge their phones by plugging them into a charging cable, end quote. This statement allegedly comes from unnamed Apple representatives speaking to Daring Fireball's John Gruber. So, I feel someone in my chat could very easily pick apart the Apple marketing speak right there. Who are the target demo consumers for the iPhone 16e? They're probably people who are shopping below and sometimes well below the prices of a regular iPhone number model. So an iPhone 16, probably too rich for their blood. An iPhone 15, probably too rich for their blood. They were the consumers who were looking at iPhone SEs, which this abomination of a cheap iPhone is ostensibly trying to replace, is the iPhone SE model of gadgets. So, I don't know. None of my iPhone SEs ever had wireless charging, right? Or wait, did my no, hold on. I think the iPhone 2020 introed wireless charging, but they did not use MagSafe. Maybe. I honestly don't remember. I think iPhone SE 2020 had wireless charging. But if Apple is only putting MagSafe into more expensive devices and the charging experience on Qi is kind of lame, then yeah, you have an entire market of poor people iPhones that are likely not using any kind of wireless or inductive charging because the experience is not very good. And so their reasoning for it goes like this: the people who have used iPhones without MagSafe don't use MagSafe. So we decided not to put MagSafe in a poor person iPhone because they weren't using MagSafe anyway, because we didn't give it to them. It is brilliantly insidious how little Apple thinks of consumers who can't spend at least $800 on a basic smartphone experience. You look at an iPhone 16 and it's like, that's just a regular good phone that should cost like $500. It's not anything special. It's using wildly outdated features and accessories and components. Uh, sure, it's got a decently powerful chip in there, but it's not any kind of premium experience. Not with two camera sensors, not with that screen tech. Not what are we doing? But Apple's saying like, yeah, that's like an $800 phone, sure. It's like Apple and Apple executives could not show us better how little they think of their audience, and especially that last like 20%. So Apple has done a remarkably good job of moving people up the food chain. The iPhone numbers, the iPhone 16, the iPhone 15, are passable good devices. I think they're way overpriced, but they're passable good devices. But they kind of exist in a way that anyone who wants something just a little bit better is immediately pushed up. They're not quite a pain point phone, but they're pretty close because they want you to shop up at the pros. And consumers seem to understand one circle on the back of iPhone mean you're cheap and broke. Two circles on back of iPhone mean you're better than all the Androids, but still kind of broke. Three circle, good iPhone. You want iPhone, gooder iPhone, three circle on back. That's kind of what passes for tech as fashion. What kind of purse label are you carrying, right? So this is hilarious and it's really ugly and it's kind of gross because look at all the things that an iPhone 16e doesn't have, and they're what for MagSafe specifically. This is supposed to be one of those things like if we ever get a portless iPhone, what Apple will move to is inductive charging, MagSafe. You know, just you'll have to buy a more expensive pad that snaps onto the back of your phone. The people who have never had MagSafe don't use MagSafe. So we'll purposely keep this as a dividing line between our poor person phone and our less poor person phone. And it's a pain point. We are purposely making a pain point device that only encourages people to move up. Unless someone is a total slob and they don't care about anything that they, you know, like they need to be in the Apple ecosystem, but they don't care about the presentation or the fashion or the recognition of owning a more expensive phone. We have the iPhone 16e. It is really gross. And I hate that. I'm gonna put a guess out there. I bet you iPhone 16e sells at nearly the same levels. I'm gonna. I don't know if anyone watches the DLC podcast. Jeff Kanata and what's his name, Christian. I can't remember his name, and he's really funny. They do a gaming podcast. I'm a big fan. Jeff Kanata. I've been following his work, and I did some voiceover projects with him way back in the day. I've been following his work since he was on Revision 3. They do this thing at the end of every year where they come up with these grand predictions on the next year of gaming. I'm going to put out a prediction here. This is my spicy prediction, my hot take prediction. The iPhone 16e will sell at within 10%, either 10% over or 10% under the entire sales of all of the Galaxy S phones for 2025. So the cheapest per person iPhone is going to sell within a 10% window of the S25, S25 Plus, and S25 Ultra. That's my prediction. So this is not a huge market for Apple. They're used to individual models of iPhone selling like 20, 30 million units. So if you only sell like 15, that's not super hot to them. I'm estimating that's kind of the window that we'll see. And for something that has that kind of a broader appeal as a singular model of phone, Apple could not show better how poorly they think of that slice of the market. So, um, let's get this out of the way. Oh, JJ4884. Yeah, Dignation did kind of make a comeback. I didn't catch it. I liked Kevin Rose. I actually did some work with Alex Albrecht. Alex Albrecht directed a short film starring Timothy Omundson before his stroke about Voltron. And if you catch that film, I was one of the audio engineers doing the mixing work for the recording on some of those voice samples. This guy right here. So Alex Albrecht was a really, really sweet guy. He was really fun to work with. And Timothy Omundson is just a comedic genius. He was so funny. I mean, that short isn't funny. It's actually really dark and kind of grim for a short film about Voltron. But he was awesome to work with. Let me get this out of the way here. So I've already gone way long on news. Let's try and tack a few of these because I can kind of combine these next two stories together. From again, I didn't realize I caught WCCF Tech again, but I caught this article first from them, written up by Mohammed Zuhair. NVIDIA is reportedly suppressing inventory levels for high-end RTX 50 series GPUs as a move to market its SKUs, as a way to show off that the GPUs are in demand and they're selling out at retailers. But we're getting reports from retailers that a 5090, they might get a crate with like 5 of them. And then they're like, well, I guess we're sold out. And especially at a time where NVIDIA's QA is so terrible. There are these little processing units and these little nodes that kind of affect performance. I'm grossly oversimplifying here. Catch like, I think Gamers Nexus has done some coverage on these ROPs. But their QA is miserable. They're shipping 5090s that might sacrifice like 4 to 8% performance depending on the task, which is really only the gain you can expect in pure raster if you go from a 4090 to a 5090. So if you get a 5090 that's missing one of these little components, then you basically just bought a 4090. But it might melt down in your system more aggressively because apparently that's still a problem with NVIDIA cards. And on top of that, to make it look like these things are so much more in demand and kind of fueling the scalper market, which is inflating aftermarket prices on all these things, it looks like NVIDIA is also purposely constraining supply. So an investigation needs to happen, but they're one of the world's most profitable companies with like a real high stock price. So until something kind of craters in this AI market and the sheen kind of comes off of NVIDIA's strategy, we're not going to see a whole lot there. But one of the glowing potential avenues for GPUs this year, this is coming by way of PC Gamer, written up by Andy Edser. AMD has officially revealed its RDNA 4-based RX 9070 and RX 9070 XT GPUs, and they look a lot like RDNA 3, only turbocharged. Oh, darn. I love that headline. It's like, oh, it's going to be similar to what they put out last year. Totally reserving the price points to the little sub-headline. $550 for the 9070, $599 for the 9070 XT. Now, if you're not keeping up with GPU prices, what AMD does in their tier of GPUs, they've tried to make their numbering similar to NVIDIA. So we have the 5070 out, the 5070 Ti, the 5090, all of these numbers, the bigger the number, the better the performance. But what AMD is putting out as their part, which is competitive against the 70 series NVIDIA part, is going to be $150 cheaper. Now, the performance, we still need to see reviews. I haven't seen anyone really hardcore benchmarking. It should be out this week. as whatever kind of embargoes have lifted and people can talk about the products. But when we look at just what we see on paper and the potential for these products, if they're at least close to that NVIDIA performance, but you can get them for $150 less, and AMD can keep their QA in check so you don't have missing components further degrading the performance of the card, then that's a really good place for AMD to be. What AMD has been doing over the last couple years has been looking at NVIDIA pricing and shaving like 50 bucks. And that's not enough. That's not enough to take a chance on AMD. The common knowledge has been stick with NVIDIA and you'll get the better experience. And right now, NVIDIA is overwhelmingly monopolistic in consumer GPUs. Like AMD and AMD and Intel. I couldn't remember the name Intel are almost rounding errors at this point in the total stat count for GPUs in the market. I mean, the best data you can get is like go to Steam surveys and see what components people are using in their high-end desktops and their gaming machines. But this could be really exciting. I would actually consider flipping out my 4070 Ti for a 9070 XT when I finally get all the pieces in place to do a PC rebuild. I waited too long, and now component prices and tariffs and shipping and all that stuff is going to be like the worst time to rebuild my PC, but I'm kind of stuck. At some point I really do want to I really do want to shift out what we can do here. Um uh JJ, that's a funny comment. I'm trying to get back to what JJ posted there. Where'd it go? But I thought if you wanted to do AI locally, NVIDIA is the best option. Are we not screwed if we went AMD? I mean, I guess. I think there's less compute performance software designed for AMD GPUs. I genuinely don't know what AI capabilities might resemble if we're looking AMD versus NVIDIA. I have to believe that NVIDIA has been putting more money, effort, and design into their AI capabilities, and I don't know that I could care. I really genuinely don't. If there's any kind of GPU compute on the AMD card and you can get some kind of support for what's happening, then great. What I'm looking at are things like just pure like in terms of GPU compute, just pure brute force, can it crunch video frames? And AMD's numbers for the last generation of cards were actually pretty healthy in programs like DaVinci Resolve. So if you looked at a couple of the different companies that did test benches, a lot of them will focus on like Adobe software, and that doesn't help me out at all. But I think it was Puget. They did a test bench looking at AMD cards versus NVIDIA cards, and it was a pretty decent. Like they were priced dollar for dollar. They were decently comparable, but the AMD cards typically would end up being like a slightly better value. For me, what's important is graphics RAM, but we don't have to get into that right now. And if I can get a 9070 XT with 16 gigs of graphics RAM, G RAM, grams, then I'm gonna be I'm gonna be doing better than this 4070 Ti. And the rest, like I'm not even really running games that much from this workstation. It's maybe 2 or 3 times a month that I'll play a game from my workstation and then send it to my Steam Deck. And I don't know that that's enough for me to say, well, I need the 5090 because of the raster performance and blah 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 blah. And like I don't think that's great. From Fred Gilbert, one, the pricing on the 9000 series is okay, but keep in mind it is actually a $50 price increase over their last gen. And yeah, everything's gotten more expensive. Like a OnePlus is now $100 more than it was last year. A OnePlus 13 to a OnePlus 12. Like everything has got, like the global supply chain is bonkers right now. And if you're telling me that I can get right now, we're estimating, we don't have good reviews out on this, but a 9070 XT should be outperforming an RTX 4080, right? So if you're telling me for $50 and keeping that same kind of card slot solution that's a little bit more premium in the middle, and that's $50 more than what their 7,000 series cards, whatever they were, I can't remember the numbering scheme now. Yeah, that's a bummer. It's 50 bucks more. Now, if I buy a new NVIDIA card, I would spend $150 more and not get any significantly better performance, and I'd probably have less RAM dollar for dollar. So yeah, I'll take the $50 price increase. I'm good. I'm good with that. It's not a deal breaker. That's not a hurt. Look at what has happened with Nvidia card prices. And then do a little comparison. I'm gonna take a quick sip. Hold on, 1 second. Okay, I got stuck on that longer than I meant to. But two stories back to back. I think Nvidia's shenanigans in the space will work out to AMD's gains, and I think AMD is actually offering a pretty compelling solution. I don't know how much time we need to spend on this. On May 5th, Microsoft Skype will shut down for good. I don't know that I can contribute much more to this story. Samuel Axon over at Ars Technica has a really brief, I mean, it is super short. It's like, what, 6 paragraphs? A little write up on that. I just felt it was worth bringing up. I actually did a little work with the Skype PR team. I think it was the Skype PR team. I did the red carpet event for Thor 2. I think it was Thor 2. Whichever one had Christopher Eccleston in it. I think so. Anyway, so I've got these amazing photos from the red carpet and like just some of my best work. I've got like really good like the entire cast and Anthony Hopkins and Chris Hemsworth and like really good photography. I was really proud of how those shots came out. But I can't think. Someone please say a company in the chat that you think is maybe an even better example of this, but Skype was a defining program for the beginning and the early days of consumer accessible internet telephony. They were ahead of the curve on messaging and calling solutions and video calls, really connecting all these pieces and parts and making it more accessible for people to jump into these kinds of services. If you remember the early days of like SIP phones and stuff, those things were miserable. It was really hard to use, chat rooms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Skype came in with this awesome, easy to use solution. And then they got bought by Microsoft, and it's like they threw away their whole lead. During a global pandemic, everyone turned to services like Zoom. And really, I mean, that's fine, but like Zoom wasn't that great. I can't think of another example of that off the top of my head as stark as that. Because now Skype has just lived in this kind of forgotten place and it's just the punchline to a joke. But I really want people to remember how incredible and disruptive that technology was when it started launching, and you could get Skype as an app and you put it on your smartphone. You could do calls and messaging over data. It was kind of like BlackBerry, but more open and easier to connect. And it's like all of that evaporated. It's like all of that completely fell apart. And now we have innumerable solutions. You have Signal and Telegram and WhatsApp and Discord. You easily fire up a video call, Teams and Meet and all these other things. And Skype, like the granddaddy, the progenitor of this style of applet, easy, streamlined telecommunications, just gone. It is crazy to me that it fell apart this hard, and now it's just dead. And now Microsoft is just pulling the plug. We need to start a Microsoft graveyard like that Google graveyard, right? The projects killed by Google. I feel like Microsoft is deserving of a similar satirical website showing all of the failures of Microsoft's product launches and strategies. Let's put Lumia on there, and then also HoloLens and mixed reality headsets, and I'm sure there are many, many others. So yeah, JJ48 isn't Skype used by many podcast networks? It has been, but there's nothing unique to it now that you would keep using it. Who is it? There's someone I've done their show a bunch of times, and they still do the calls over Skype. But I think they're going to be moving to another. Not because Skype is shutting down, but I think they were already on the path to move to something else like StreamYard, so they could get better recording capabilities per participant. It's just it's just kind of crazy. Maybe we can ask Microsoft to pull a pebble and make Skype open source. I wish. Oh, a DTNL. Yeah, another one that Microsoft killed. Of course, the Zune. The Zune was great. I don't think Android Faithful is using Skype. The last time I was there, I think they're using StreamYard. But it was one of these. It was one of these other video platforms that it wasn't. They used to use Skype when it was all about Android. They used Skype to get the call to go into the Twit network, and then that's how we synced up the calls. It's honestly just been so much easier. Whatever they're using now that records each participant individually has been so much easier than what it was like guesting back during the Twit days. But JJ4884, that was a very prescient comment saying, well, why couldn't Microsoft open source it? Because it'd be really cool if Skype open sourced it. And they have an example of that this week. A company who I'm shocked is doing this and is doing it right. This is like a really pro consumer move, and from a company I would not have expected. EA just released source code for a bunch of old Command and Conquer games and added Steam Workshop support to bangers like Command and Conquer 3 Tiberium Wars. Written up by Joshua Wolins over at PC Gamer. The games getting a source code release are Command and Conquer, Tiberian Dawn, Red Alert, Command and Conquer Renegade, and CNC Generals in Zero Hour. They're being released under the GPL license, meaning folks can mix, match, and redistribute them to their heart's content without EA lawyers smashing down the door. You can find them all on EA's GitHub page. That is wild. That is crazy. Is Fat Produce still in the chat? Fat Produce just commented. What? Tiberium Wars is one of my very favorites. This is what we should be demanding of more developers. If you're going to give up on a game, you're going to pull support for it. If you're going to pull servers, there needs to be some last step. Because if you're going to say, hey, it's totally illegal to pirate the game, but we're also never going to allow you to buy it ever again, then I feel you've given up your rights to copyright. We do this with copyright and with trademarks. If you don't enforce the copyright and you don't enforce the trademark, you should lose that copyright and that trademark. If there is no good faith avenue for purchasing a game, then you've given up your right to protect that IP. And this is the right way to do it. We want people to buy these games, the RTS genre. This is like such a sweetheart move. This is such a loving community position to take. They're probably not making any money on Command and Conquer anymore. It's just that old kind of, I remember it from back in the day. Open it up and then see. Tell me this isn't like the best market research you can get on an old IP. Because now, if there is a community of people that are still like, hey, yeah, I love those old Command and Conquer games. I love revisiting that kind of pixel graphics, really old school. And I can make new things for these games now legally. And they see an explosion in content. Then EA knows, hey, you know what? It might be worth it for us to put some money into developing a new property based on this IP. If they don't see like a huge user base and lots of new plugins and updates and all this other crazy stuff, then they know like, hey, we don't need to waste any money trying to make new Command and Conquer. But the few people that are out there playing at least have this love letter of support, this last gasp of isn't it fun, nostalgic kind of gaming. I am shocked EA did this. I just think it's wild. And now I'm gonna start digging in and kind of poking around. I got ugly playing old Command and Conquer games, like in high school and college, where like I would forget to bathe my. It was Command and Conquer and Diablo, where I would play until I would get home from work, fire up a PC, play until it was time to go to class. Not like shower, not bathe, just real gross. Super gross. Those two games were really ugly for me. So I'm very excited to see that. And now, yeah, I really want to see what people do with it. I have to take a quick pause right here. JMan150 is gifting a tier 1 sub to Treats and Milk 2. Thank you so much, JMan150. That is very generous of you. And you get an acapella fanfare of glory. But seriously, thank you very much. At some point, maybe when I go over to StreamYard, I'll have figured out all of my audio shenanigans and get my soundboard back and working again. But it really means a lot to me that people are catching these streams, especially on the Twitch side, supporting the production on these streams. It does. It helps keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab, and it's just helping to sort of keep these conversations going, keep these conversations flowing. So Fat Produce has already jumped on the community pages and the workshop pages. Mods are already being released for it on the Steam Workshop. And I'm reinstalling it now. Report back, Andrew. I feel like by the end of my podcast, you will have already played a round or 3. Before we get into some MWC chat, I have one more article here. Earlier in the podcast, we were talking about like, e-waste and the environmental impact of our tech. And I can't think of a category that deserves more scrutiny than AI. When AI is being used as an evolutionary machine learning addition on your phone or on your laptop, I think we're doing incredible things with little tiny machine learning components, little NPUs. I've said it before on the stream. Go and take the new Affinity suite of like graphics design and photo editing. Excuse me, man, I got coffee burps today. Go and take Affinity for a test drive. You can test drive them for like months. I think they've got like a 4-month preview so that you can really see if you like that app. They just publicly released update 2.6. And 2.6 will use the little NPU in a laptop like my Microsoft Surface Laptop 7, the one with the Snapdragon in it. It is so incredibly fast at doing a scan of the image and then sort of generally understanding all the different things that are in that image. It is faster on a little NPU. It has been optimized for a little NPU. It shouldn't be a huge amount of compute performance there, but it is faster at doing that scan than using Affinity 2.6 with my beefy GPU. It is wild how a lower power part can get this work done faster. That kind of machine learning, I'm here. I'm here for it all day, every day. It is awesome. But this whole thing about cloud AI is where I take a whole bunch of information and then I have to shove it up an internet pipe up to a data center in a Google warehouse, and then a server rack crunches that information and then has to send it back down. This cloud AI requires more and more data center infrastructure that these companies are really not wanting to pay for. It's not making any money. Look at how we're starting to get these little tepid headlines. Who was it? Satya Nadella was like, "Oh well, I don't really know that we're seeing yet the economic impact of the AI. It's definitely coming, but I don't know that we're there yet." And we're starting to get all these little things like, "Oh, look at how this company was trying to sneak hidden fees into a city's electricity company, so that the citizens of that city would have to pay for the increase in electricity consumption generated by cloud AI. So your electricity bills go up because they want to do a bigger data center. Look at all the water, the potable water that is being radically consumed by these data centers to cool racks and racks and racks of servers. And the scale on this is utterly ridiculous for the total garbage output that we get from AI. There is no business model here. There's so little that we can really practically do with these cloud services that we couldn't do locally, or just maybe it's an extra step in looking things up. And we have to work even harder to filter out garbage information from AI hallucinating. This was all a really long wind up to an article written up by Benj Edwards over at Ars Technica. Quote, "It's a lemon," end quote. OpenAI's largest AI model ever arrives to mixed reviews. From the article, the verdict is in. OpenAI's newest and most capable traditional AI model, GPT 4.5, is big, expensive, and slow, providing marginally better performance than GPT 4o at 30 times the cost for input and 15 times the cost for output. The new model seems to prove that long-standing rumors of diminishing returns in training unsupervised learning LLMs were correct, and that the so-called scaling laws cited by many for years have possibly met their natural end. I have been saying this since the beginning of this AI boom. Every minor step you see in improvement to capabilities, to output, to intelligence in an LLM is an order of magnitude more compute power. And every single time we see one of these new models launched, it means we need a doubling, sometimes a tripling of compute power to generate a marginally better response. And it's still not aware, it's still not intelligent. It is still just guessing at putting together words and phrases based on tokens that it knows these patterns, and it can kind of copy the patterns of human speech or human research, and then it sort of vomits out this information. 30 times the cost for input and 15 times the cost for output. Do you remember? The end of last year, OpenAI wasn't able to pay their bills. They were $10 billion in the hole, and they aren't paying full price for server access. They still have a sweetheart deal with Microsoft where they're getting a unique tier of access to Microsoft data centers. The same Microsoft that is still looking at the feasibility of firing up the nuclear facilities at 3 Mile Island to try and power their AI initiatives. I don't know if that's fallen through yet. It should fall through. That is an aged nuclear facility. We should not be investing money in firing up old nuclear just to power Microsoft data centers. And especially when consumers and citizens of the United States, their tax dollars will be on the hook for the insurance. If anything goes wrong at 3 Mile Island, we'll be stuck with the bill. That's not me speculating. That was one of the stories we covered months ago on this podcast. So if OpenAI's new model is 30 times more expensive to run, do we think OpenAI has a business model to cover 30 times higher data processing costs? I don't think they do. They only were able to kind of finish out last year because they raised another round of funding. So now not only are they wildly overvalued, they're not bringing in enough revenue, they're nowhere near profit, they're burning electricity, burning through water, really taxing the infrastructure of companies like Microsoft. They're kind of already forgotten about on platforms like iOS. Apple Intelligence has been a huge bust too, a huge whiff in the market, a fart, blink and you missed it, but you probably smelled it on the way out. and the performance isn't that much better. Marginally better, slower, and an order of magnitude more expensive to operate. Hey, I want you to pay more for your next smartphone, but it will be 30 times slower at doing, or no, I should say 30 times more expensive to do the same basic things that you can already do today. Sign me up. I'm going to throw my money at it. This entire arms race, LLMs are these really cool things that help contribute to very basic types of interactions. The natural iteration and progression of an LLM are the things that we saw, from spell check to predictive text entry, right? If you ever, I'll see if I can find it, and if I can, I'll put it in this week's show notes. There's a little like mini documentary I caught on YouTube where they're talking about kind of the early days of trying to make a digital keyboard for the Chinese language. And it's a really difficult task because of the way that certain styles of Chinese speech are different than how you write things out. It's kind of wild. But they were doing that back on like DOS computers, and that's because of that research that we had the early generations of spell check in our word processors. And that eventually led to spell check in a software keyboard, and then word prediction. If you type this word, you might type this word after it. So we'll just put it up there and you can tap it instead of typing out the word. That kind of evolution is really cool. LLMs can help us expand those kinds of capabilities. They can help us more quickly analyze speech and write that speech out so we get faster transcription to the point where it's almost real time, and someone who's hard of hearing could just hold up their phone and see text coming in if someone doesn't know sign language, right? Those kinds of things are amazing. That's what LLMs are awesome. And we had this scientific community that was sharing all of this research on, well, if I put this model together and it has this many parameters, it can still run really quickly, but you'll get better results. As soon as ChatGPT started talking billions of dollars and buying tons of NVIDIA hardware, investors went, oh, this is the next big thing. It's going to replace everything. It's going to be amazeballs, just like NFTs were awesome. And I've completely forgotten that that was a major fad that turned out to be kind of a scam. Every company basically walled off their research. So ChatGPT being in this market, failing at creating a real sustainable business model, is slowing down the rate of progress. There is no cross-pollination of researchers working on LLMs anymore, and a DeepSeek can come out of nowhere and rock this entire market because LLMs really aren't that sexy. It is word prediction on steroids, and that's all it is. And it's very disappointing that we're still sitting here trying to pretend like there's going to be this revolution in computing based on these language models. And it's not gonna happen that way. We need other types of AI research, but now no one wants to share their data because they think, oh, well, maybe my AI project will be acquired by a Microsoft or a Google or an Apple, and then I'll be a billionaire. But it's all just smoke and mirrors. And it's smoke and mirrors that is burning through electricity and burning through water and making all of our products ridiculously more expensive than they need to be. Because how do you pay those bills if you're not really generating profits on the AI? It's just really, really frustrating. Darcy, but Juan, Sergey Brin says AGI is right around the corner if engineers work 60 hours a week in the office. I saw that article too. Oh man, I'm not saying anything terrible should happen to people, but I feel like billionaires are a little too safe and removed from the population when they say things like that. They're kind of showing us, yet again, how little they think of consumers, and it's not good. It's not good for us when a couple rich people can make these ludicrous business decisions and basically ruin everyone's lives. Sergey Brin saying AGI is right around the corner. If only those poor schlubby engineers who are probably already working 50 or 55 hours a week were just a bit more committed to making me richer. Why can't they see that my happiness is going to be dependent on them completely destroying their lives and their health for my bottom line? Just give me those 5 extra hours a week. Just get in there and really make this happen so that I can fire you all. When you make AGI, I can just replace you all with AI bots that are more aware or intelligent than LLMs. Oh, you just don't understand what it's like to be a billionaire. It's just so hard dealing with all the filthy pores. It really is. Take another drink of coffee. That gets us through the news block. And who wants to talk about some Xiaomi? I would like to talk about some Xiaomi. Michael C. Like, what a case study. Terrible for consumers, terrible for the environment, manufactured growth for shareholders. Won't someone please think of the shareholders? That humane pin was hilarious. Just another product built all on AI hype. I've got my frame glasses, the frames by Brilliant, and the least interesting thing to me is how they talk to your phone in an app on your phone that does some basic LLM stuff. What's cool is that you have an inexpensive pair of glasses with a prism that you can get that information up to eye level. The least interesting part of the frame are, oh, if I ask it a question, it can kind of answer the question slower than Google search could. So I'm gonna play the same game that I did in my Patreon video, only I'm gonna make this a little trickier. I'm gonna hold up two phones. We'll say phone one and phone two. And I want people to tell me which one is the new Xiaomi. Are you ready? I'm gonna hold them up for 4 seconds. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Done. Which one was the new one? I'm gonna take the cases off because they are different colors. You can maybe tell if you've been catching any of my coverage on Xiaomi devices over the last 2 years, you might be able to tell which one is the new one. But I want to see if anyone had a guess. I'm gonna take a drink of water while someone sees if there was a guess which Xiaomi that I held up was the new one. Ah, Aditi Anil, phone 2, that flash module. Good job. Excellent. JJ48 Xenon flash. It is not a Xenon flash. It is an LED flash, but they moved the LED flash to the side of the camera module as opposed to building it into the camera module. Bradley Larcher, speaking of Xiaomi, what are your thoughts on the prototype that they showed off? We'll get to that. We're getting to the... See, Bradley, I just want to point out, we have not yet actually talked about the devices they announced. And we're already moving on to prototypes and other things. Like, I have a phone right here in front of me that almost no one else in the world has. Or I should say the global version of a phone that in most markets just doesn't really exist yet. And we're already like, well, that's old news. No one has gotten a pre-order for this yet, but I guess it's over and we shouldn't talk about it anymore. From Ray Mondit, isn't it time to just stop releasing phones? Why would someone update at this point unless your phone is broken and can't be fixed? And I will answer that question for you. If we were honest in our tech reviews about what new features and what new components can do for performance, a long time ago, we would have already moved a significant, not a majority, but a significant chunk of the population to doing things like using phones as their actual primary compute devices and building ecosystems around plug in phone and use phone on big monitor. In India, there are, I want to say there are roughly 700 million smartphone consumers, and there's only about 200 million laptop users. So in India, there is a larger population of smartphone only consumers than there is the entire population of the United States. And India has a population of over 1 billion people. So the next 400 million people getting data connected devices and getting onto the internet will be smartphone first or smartphone only. And how many times have we seen these knuckle dragging, chucklehead reviews? Oh, it's just all basically the same. It's all the same thing. You can't even tell the differences. Cameras are the same and you can't do this stuff, and who even does things on their phones? Well, 500 million people in India use a phone as their only communication computing device. And we're still seeing a wild number of short form videos coming out of India. We're still seeing tons of gaming happen in India. This is no longer a compromise. If I pick up, I don't think I have it on my desk right now. Oh, I do. If I pick up my Vivo X100 Pro, the chip in this phone is, if you believe benchmarking scores, is almost identically powerful as a 12th gen Core i7 laptop chip from Intel, but it peaks at like 12 watts. So at its maximum performance, it is drawing less electricity than an Intel Core i7 at idle doing nothing. So, if we had been honest about this and not just Apple is better and oh, cameras are all the same and ooh, who even does things on their phones, we would have moved more people into a more economical, multi-computing environment. We wouldn't be selling them phones and laptops and tablets and desktops. We'd be able to make a better faith argument. Hey, you get home at the end of the day and you just want to look at a document on a bigger screen. You just pop your phone into this dock. It's going to cool it and charge it, give you a full-size keyboard and mouse, use a real monitor, and it's all good to go. And then when you need to look at the phone, it's still going to show you the phone screen stuff if you get a call coming in. It's seamless. Seamless. Dex has shown us this. Honor's Magic Desktop has shown us this. Moto Ready 4 has shown us this. And instead, we've just had review after review after review from major channels where they hide behind this phrase, average consumer, and write off any technology that would actually be a tangible improvement. And that's why consumers don't listen to us, and that's why they get all of their education from marketing and from commercials, and that's why even the massive YouTube channels are seeing their viewership drop. Because they keep talking about $1,500 phones in the same way that you would use a $200 entry-level device. So, unfortunately, this has also led to this year where we're starting to see some interesting things happen with component pricing, and I can segue this back to the Xiaomi 15. I have a video on the Patreon. It's not a review, but it is a 22-minute video looking at the Xiaomi 15, how it relates to the Xiaomi 14, and also, oh, and I do still have it on my desk, where we might be if you were kind of considering a jump from the Xiaomi 13. So I've got 3 generations of Xiaomi phone here that are very similar, but there was a big jump in photography and performance going from the Xiaomi 13 to the Xiaomi 14. There's a much, much smaller difference going from the Xiaomi 14 to the Xiaomi 15. The Xiaomi 15 should really be called a Xiaomi 14S, but there are still some lifestyle and practical improvements going from 14 to 15. Super iterative, super minor, but I really want to point this out. I'm super frustrated with how Xiaomi has done this launch. It's one of the few phones I can point to where it doesn't feel like there are any noticeable downgrades. I love my Vivo X200 Pro. I really wish the X200 Pro still had the main camera sensor from the X100 Pro. To me, it does feel like a little bit of a downgrade. I get upgrades in other places and I still really like the phone, but it's not a total across the board upgrade. So when we go from Xiaomi 14 to Xiaomi 15, it's so refreshing. It shouldn't be. It's so refreshing that so much of this just feels like a lateral move. I mean, that's really sad to say, right? None of this feels like I'm having to take a hit. Oh, I'm getting better battery life, but oh, this camera. Or, oh, I'm getting faster charging, but oh, I lost the IR blaster. None of that. So few. I can't say that about a Galaxy S25 Ultra. The Galaxy Note lost some features compared to last year's Galaxy Note. And it still hasn't improved on battery capacity or in charging speed to any significant degree. I mean, I want to point that out specifically. I mean, you guys all know like spec sheets and stuff. Like I'm just reading specs off at you at this point, but how behind we are in the United States and how terrible this situation has gotten. I'm going to hold up these two phones. Let's see if I can kind of line them up so that you can see the size differences here. And then kind of lean in. I don't want to show them off at like a weird angle. So this on behind is my Pixel 9 Pro XL. And this in front is the Xiaomi 15. Not the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, not the Xiaomi 15 Pro, the little Xiaomi. And you can see there's a pretty sizable gap in terms of height, and there's a noticeable difference in width. So which of these two phones would you assume had the bigger battery? Because let me tell you, it's not the Pixel 9 Pro XL. It's not that at all. The little Xiaomi not only has a larger battery than the bigger Pixel, it charges more than twice as fast. It charges almost 3 times faster than the Pixel 9 Pro XL. And that's what we're doing here in the United States. Like it's any kind of big deal that Samsung is finally kind of really giving us 40-watt charging, and this little mini Xiaomi hits at 90-watt charging. I can't tell you how awesome that is. You plug in your phone, you go and like hit the bathroom, brush your teeth, come back, and you have a fully charged phone. I mean, maybe not if you go to the bathroom really quickly. It could just be me and being old. Maybe I take an extra minute in there. That was gross. I'm so sorry. Let me take a drink of water real quick. So, I I think it's kind of crazy and I think it's kind of wild. I'm not super excited about the Xiaomi 15 for what it is in this year compared to what you had last year. But I'm relieved that it doesn't feel like a downgrade. And this also opens up the other thing that tech reviewers are really bad at when we're talking about sort of perceived quality. I would imagine in many regions, because I don't have the full pricing breakdown for every place where the Xiaomi 15 is going to ship and what it's going to cost in those local currencies and how that compares against the US dollar. It's just, I don't do that in my reviews. That would be the most boring video ever. In India, this phone will be this many rupees, which is kind of close to 5.99. And then in Australia, if you import it, it'll be this much. No one is going to watch that video. But the other thing that does kind of get me a bit more excited about Xiaomi 15 because it's likely going to have a bit of a price hike in a lot of regions. Kind of like those AMD graphics cards got a $50 price bump, egad. The experience is so exceedingly similar to the Xiaomi 14 that if you can find the 14 on a good sale or maybe used or on a refurb, you should be able to get some pretty good deals on last year's phone, and it's going to be very similar to this year's phone. That is how we kind of establish some of this savvy consumer shopping price comparisons. I want to be more hyped up about Qualcomm, about the Snapdragon 8 Elite. This new chip does some really interesting things, but it's also an evolving conversation that I don't feel techies are very well educated on these kinds of differences in silicon. I think I'm talking to a group of people who probably already understand some of those nuances. But let me tell you, my podcast doesn't pull enormous traffic. So when I start digging into this kind of stuff and I see I can literally watch my viewership drop, I know I'm losing people. And I'm not even getting to the really difficult, the really complicated stuff. When we look at what makes the 8 Elite an interesting chip compared to the 8 Gen 3 from last year, it's in sort of these higher performance, task completion, brute force processing capability. It's what makes a phone chip directly competitive against an older laptop chip. MediaTek made the transition first. Qualcomm has jumped on the same bandwagon this year. But that's one of the reasons why I think we're seeing battery capacities increase, is because at peak performance, that chip will pull a little bit more electricity. You need a bigger battery capacity to also put out more juice in a single burst, a short burst of activity, which is why I'm not excited to see Samsung delivering the same battery capacities again. You need that extra bucket of electrons to force out more electrons in any one moment. So the performance on Samsung phones, I believe, is probably going to be the most managed we've seen, even though now they're finally giving us access to these like higher performance modes again, these gaming modes and stuff. But if you're not properly building a high performance phone around those energy and cooling concerns, then a big all core CPU is really going to perform worse than last year's chips. I got a little taste of this with the Xiaomi 15, and that's why I have three. I literally just picked up, I put them all face up, and I just picked up the 14, the 13, and then went, oh, right, I put the 15 over here. They're so close in feel, I could not tell which phone was which from the front. Oh, derivative design. So, this is one of those things where here we go. I'm not going to talk about this for too long because it's an article on patreon.com/somegadgetguy. Xiaomi 15 by the benchmarks. We knew Xiaomi would pull this. This phone, during the embargo, if you would try and tax it, was performing worse than a lot of our premium tier phones from last year. So this Snapdragon 8 Elite on embargo software was given us numbers that were a lot closer to a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. I have not watched a lot of reviews on the Xiaomi 15. The Xiaomi 15 Ultra is kind of the bigger deal when it comes to SEO, and the people who got the Ultra were focusing more on that because they knew they'd get more traffic on the more expensive phone. But if you've caught any Xiaomi 15 reviews, can you tell me, did those reviewers show us practical examples of what this phone could do? Under embargo software, it was worse than the Xiaomi 14 in many of the tests that I run. And I'm not talking about Geekbench. It still got amazing Geekbench scores. I'm not talking Antutu. Somehow this phone was doing incredibly well on Antutu. But the second I would fire up Google Photos, you could see it wasn't doing things as quickly or as well as the Xiaomi 14. When you really used the phone, it seemed to be a generation behind. So this is what happens time and time and time again. And I don't know why manufacturers like Xiaomi and Oppo do this, but they send us reviewers of the device. They say, hey, you can't talk about your experiences using it until this date at this time. And then wouldn't you know it, as soon as they announce the phone, but no one can buy it yet. Maybe they open up pre-orders, but no one is shipping the phone yet. That's when they release a major patch or a huge update that significantly improves the performance of the phone. So, as what usually happens with OnePlus here in the United States, a lot of our big channels, they know they don't make as much money on OnePlus content, so they review a OnePlus during embargo where the phone is performing at its literal worst. And then it gets a massive update and it gets a couple of bug fixes, it gets a couple of patches in the first couple months that the phone is out, and then the experience consumers will have with it will be radically different than the experience that they had under embargo. But do those reviewers go back and do those updates? I've been on several podcasts with pretty big tech commentators, and I'll ask them things like, "Hey, so what do you think of that new OnePlus animation engine?" "Oh, I haven't updated my OnePlus. I don't really use it for anything. I'll just wait for the next OnePlus when that's just pre-installed on the phone." Blah 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 blah. So Xiaomi totally ruined my Sunday. I did all of the performance tests that I normally do, and I was getting these numbers that were crazy bad. Because we should see like a 10 to 15% improvement to the performance on these phones. And in several cases, I was seeing a backslide in some of these tasks. And I'm like, that is not good. I cannot call this a review because the phone literally is not ready to review. And the second the announcement hit, I could finally get into the phone settings and I got this update. And I updated the phone and then I redid my testing suite, and it took me all morning to go through and let me load up these video projects and let me load up this podcast test and let me load up these photos, and every score got better. Not only did every score get better, some of those scores were like 20 to 30% improvements over where the phone was on the pre-release software. And it's like I'm frustrated on both sides. Cuz like, let's say a reviewer really did call out performance on this Xiaomi, are they going to go back and redo those tests and tell their audience how things have improved? I don't think so. That's not a part of the long-term conversation, is really looking at Xiaomi updates. We only care about pixel feature drops and iOS updates and One UI updates. A OnePlus update, nah, we're not going to burn a lot of time on that. A Xiaomi update, nah, forget it. That's Chinese. But that's what it is. That's literally what happens. And we know it's going to happen. And we still tell audiences, oh, this wasn't as good. And oh, this performance was bad. And oh, these apps didn't perform as well. And oh, look at these FPSs in Genshin. Game with like 100 million downloads. Who cares about Genshin Impact? A billion people have downloaded CapCut. So, hold on. The couple comments here I just want to check in. And then I want to talk about the tablet, because the tablet is pretty cute too. So hold on one second. From Aditya, no, Wansi, the logic is that if you're a pro, you are efficient with your work. So in a sense, the smallest battery should be in the Pro and Ultra. You got to be efficient if want to be pro. Hire me, Apple. From Michael C, I wonder why they deprecated that little screen they had on the back of the 11 Ultra. So if you remember, we were going from the 11 Ultra to the 12. One of the reasons why I think they got rid of that screen was heating. I think it was a power draw. You had a mini display on the back, so the back of your phone was going to be generating more heat. And that was the era that we were just getting into the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Remember, we held the Xiaomi 12. There was no Xiaomi 12 Ultra. We waited until we got that chip back from TSMC, and then we had the 12S Ultra. But I think by that time, the design had already been finalized that instead of adding this big display to the back of the phone, we could spread out this camera assembly. It was probably a little less expensive to manufacture. We had a hotter chip coming into the phone. Then it got a little bit better, but still I could see where that design process was like, this is a cool feature. And now we're seeing it again, like that lava. I think it's over on my bookshelf. I still need to do a video just like, hey, it's a feature you might like. And we're seeing them on flips and folds where you can use a display while you're firing up the camera. But I don't think we're going to get that back on a real camera-centric device when cameras are taking up this much space. This is an opportunity, though, where if you have a phone where the cameras are taking up a whole bunch of space, maybe give us some more accessories. Sony did that right. Little grip, and you could plug in a little mini display, and then you could like vlog and see your composition directly from that little attached screen. You could give us a phone case with a display built into it. We've had dual display cases. Again, it's like I'm going to get to a comment from David Burns here, but it's like if we were really honest and not just LG are always bad, so buy Samsung instead, and Samsungs are always gooder, we wouldn't have this problem with competition. But it's more profitable to tell Samsung fans that they were right to buy a Samsung. So we're not honest about real features and real accessories and real things that improve the computing experience. We're only playing hype beast to the companies that are already popular. We'll overlook every new feature as a gimmick until Apple does it. And then it's something you can't live without because it's on an iPhone. If we were honest, you would have more choices, you would have more competitive phone prices, and your ultras would legit be ultra. But I keep telling people about this and I keep trying to warn them, and it keeps getting worse because the tech viewership audience is dwindling, and those companies that are just trying to appeal to tech enthusiasts are getting even more ratcheted with a smaller population of potential audience. From Michael C. I don't think that's getting enough attention. 8 Elite needs a bigger battery. Obviously, in Samsung, it's going in the opposite direction. In some cases, like the Edge model has a tiny battery, and I would imagine that you're not getting the full performance of that chip, or at least definitely not in any kind of sustained scenario. From ADTNL, geez, the more I listen to you, the more last year's 14 Ultra becomes more tempting. I do literally nothing that needs high performance on my phone. The cameras on the 14U are plenty upgradey. Well, first of all, the 14 Ultra would still be a ridiculously high-end, expensive, premium camera experience by today's standards. My Vivo X100 Pro is still a monster. My Xiaomi 12S Ultra is still outperforming my Pixel 9 Pro XL. Main camera sensor, better. Telephoto camera sensors, very similar. Ultra-wide camera sensors, very similar. In terms of hardware, the Xiaomi 12S Ultra, which is a 3-generation-old phone, is besting the Pixel if you really care about these kinds of sensor technologies, composition, and you're not a total idiot who won't even tap to focus on the phone screen. If all you do is pull phone out of pocket and push shutter, get a Pixel A series. Do that. If you care at all about the quality of your photography or the composition of your photos or being able to tweak or edit or do any of these things that matter to you, Xiaomi 12S Ultra still better than Pixel 9 Pro XL, and the 3-generation-old SoC in this phone is still hanging with the newest Tensor. That's how far behind Tensor has been. So if you're talking about last year's Xiaomi 14 Ultra, that's still a huge player. There's some pros and cons. I'm really kind of upset with the Xiaomi 15 Ultra losing the variable aperture on the camera. For a photography-focused device, I still have my Xiaomi 13 Ultra, and being able to stop down the main sensor is kind of a big deal. It's really helpful in super, super bright conditions and giving you a little extra depth. If you're not wanting the shallowest depth of field, that stuff is critical. And I'm really going to miss it on the Xiaomi 15. On the 15 Ultra, I should say. From Dave Burns, I think everyone is feeling exhausted by how everything is continuing and we're expected to pay more for everything with marginal improvements or less features than phones from past years. And I have heard so many tech reviewers say things like, well, you have to vote with your wallets. But then they'll trash anything that's not the most popular because that's not helping their wallet. Imagine if we still had LG in this space. Imagine if Motorola was still shipping premium tier devices to the United States. Imagine if we weren't all just hype beasting for Apple because of the color of our text messages. I've been catching, like, for the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, The Verge was like, "Oh, it's such an ugly phone. Oh, the cameras. Oh, I guess if you want better cameras, it's just you have to deal with such an ugly phone." And then I think I might have been Android Central or Android Authority, where one of their top headlines was, "The design of the Xiaomi 15 Ultra will get me to upgrade. It's just the prettiest phone I think I've ever seen." It's a $1,200 Ultra device with wildly unique camera capability. And two of the biggest written editorials on the phone that I could find in an initial Google search are talking about, is it pretty enough? Is it a pretty enough phone? Is the Xiaomi 15 Ultra going to be pretty for you? So when you take it out of your pocket and you don't do anything and you just look at the back of the phone because that's all you do with the phone because you're an idiot? Is it is it prettier? And that's tech commentary. For The Verge, for their audience, they have to find something that they can knock on the phone so that their audience will trash it in the comments. For Android Central, they're probably getting a broader readership on Xiaomi devices as Xiaomi has gotten more popular internationally and they need the traffic because Android editorial is in the dumpster right now. So they're a little bit more amenable, but neither of those reviewers or editorialists have anything to contribute on really using the device. What are you really going to do with it? They don't know because they don't do things with their phones. The people in my chat do things with their phones. And they aren't afraid of a OnePlus 13R because they've weighed the pros and cons and they know, hey, this is an incredible amount of compute power. It's just a bummer I can't plug it into a monitor. I know what I'm doing with this phone. But that passes for tech commentary. And we could be improving the situation and building competition and challenging some of our audience's expectations and building that readership. But we lost all the average consumers because they gave up listening to us quibble over fractions of a millimeter of bezel. Because that is not informed commentary. I am sorry, I got way off track here because I also have this really cute tablet. Look at this. It's like a tablet, and then you open it, and it's got schmutz all over the bottom of it because I've been using it downstairs in the kitchen quite a bit. And you open it, and it's got like a little keyboard and a trackpad, and it's got a stylus, and then you can pop out this, and it's very Apple-y in design, but I do kind of like this hinge design on this tablet keyboard and how you can kind of angle it up and out a little bit better. I've been really A-Bing this a lot against my OnePlus Pad. So sorry, this is the new Xiaomi Pad 7 something. I think it's Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro. It's got a Snapdragon 8S Gen 3. I was really anxious that this would be kind of a detuned Snapdragon. Generally, in workloads, it's kind of undetectable what difference you might have against something that's just properly running an 8 Gen 3. So this is my OnePlus Pad. You can see my OnePlus Pad is bigger. For a lot of my practical workloads, I'm going to have an article coming out soon just talking about the performance because guess what also just got a patch, a major patch after the announcement was the Xiaomi Pad. So now I've got to redo all of my tests on this too, and I really wanted to focus on the phone coming out first. But taking it out of this case, because they have a couple different cases. They have just a basic folio, so if you just want to get something that props it up like a stand. They have a simpler keyboard case that doesn't have the little mini trackpad. And then they have this, which is the more Super Pro edition. What do they call it? Oh, they don't even have the name of it here on this. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to cover all that in the article and the review. But I did want to pull my OnePlus Pad out here because I don't like the OnePlus solution quite as much, but it does give us one perk. So on the OnePlus, we have this annoying back plate that just serves as a stand. So you snap that on and it props the tablet up. This is not very strong. And when you try to pick it up, if you're too quick, you'll pull this off the tablet. You can drop your tablet. That's not great. But what the OnePlus Pad does is you disconnect the keyboard, and then the keyboard can work as a wireless solution in a more sort of surface kind of setup. And I do like that style a little bit better than the Xiaomi all one piece case and keyboard. But the Xiaomi all one piece case and keyboard holds the tablet better, and it works better like a laptop. So again, it's all pros and cons. If you pull your tablet away from your keyboard and you want to use that wirelessly, OnePlus's solution is better. If you want it to feel more like a laptop, the OnePlus solution is garbage. You don't keep this on your lap. It's got to work on a table. The Xiaomi solution can make that transition happen better. But I just wanted to show this real quick, kind of the size differences between the OnePlus Pad and the Xiaomi Pad. You kind of see those big gaps over here. It makes the it makes the Xiaomi kind of a little bit easier to cart and carry as this crossover device, as a laptop replacement kind of device. I really do like in the same way that I kind of like little mini laptops for travel, Chromebooks, that kind of usage experience. When you put this all together and you put it back in its case, it's got good protection, it's got that keyboard ready to go, and this stuff is really well put together. It's really well engineered. Um, this is light, it's compact, it's incredibly powerful. It's going to be more powerful than most kind of Chromebook pluses, especially when you're using Android apps. The second you have to use an Android app on a Chromebook, your performance kind of suffers. If it's not a native Chrome app, or if you're not running Linux, you should be running Linux apps on your more powerful Chromebooks. But in that consumery space where so many of our experiences are app or browser focused anyway, Android has gotten real strong in that regard. Little things like it's easy to kind of do a floating window. I wish we had a more desktop-y experience just natively as the main presentation for what Xiaomi does. But outside of some gaming performance, and this isn't bad at gaming, it's just a little less good at gaming. I really didn't experience many differences or clock many differences between the chip in this and the chip in my OnePlus. So I'll have more to say on this. I think the camera sensor cutout thing here is ludicrous. Like there's no reason to have this big old bulge of a camera except to maybe make you want a case so that you can even out and make the back of the tablet flush. But it's been a really fun showdown. A keyboard stylus equipped mini slate that I think does wonderful competition against some of our iPad solutions out there. Um, I really bristle because like we keep hearing over and over and over again, tablets are solutions in searches of problems, but it's we have that little Surface laptop. We have the Surface Laptop Go 3. I forget which one it is. It's that older Core i5, limited amount of storage, but it's a cute little, like, kind of 12-inch laptop. And my wife loves that thing. But more and more, I'm going to some kind of convertible tablet. If it's my Robo Incala, if it's the OnePlus, now if it's the Xiaomi, I like this experience better than casually turning to a laptop to get something done. The battery life is incredible. The performance is sometimes better than a little mini laptop. It's easier to travel with. If you were looking at a multi-screen kind of solution, tablets are offering things in this kind of experience that I think a lot of consumers would prefer to have this than a proper laptop. But it's a little unfamiliar, or maybe they're just used to iPads, and that's not the same. Like if you were recommending someone get a Chromebook, that person isn't gonna look at a MacBook, or they aren't gonna look at an iPad. But the iPad doesn't cross over into MacBook territory as effectively because of the artificial limits that Apple puts, the division between products. Like, why don't MacBooks have touchscreens, right? There are these artificial lines where Apple really needs you to have every version of their computing platforms. So you can kind of get around that with a little Windows, Linux, Android multi-screen kind of solution. And what's happening in Android tablets right now is actually kind of exciting. I think some of the best work that Samsung is doing are on those Galaxy tabs. The current Galaxy tab is a monster tablet. It's got that Dimensity 9300 in it. What Xiaomi and OnePlus have done is very price disruptive for a potential laptop replacement, but for someone who doesn't want to carry a laptop. This is really sleek. It's really discreet. It's touch and pen enabled. I mean, it's all these things that we kind of say we want, but then someone's going to quibble over, oh, but it doesn't have a full operating system for classic legacy Windows apps. And the people buying ultra portable laptops don't care at all. They really don't. If they're not doing everything through a browser, then they're probably getting like the Netflix app. If they've got to log into a corporate VPN and work off of browsers and apps and that kind of web-based work too, they the tablet experience might be fine. They might not notice that there's a difference. So anyway, I'm gonna have to go and retest the Xiaomi Pad now too, but I'll be getting some kind of commentary out, just talking about what's going on with all of these different Xiaomi devices. And along the way, we also got the Xiaomi Buds. What are they? The Xiaomi Buds Pro 3, Pro 5. Xiaomi Buds 5 Pro, and they're not bad. They're decent little earbuds. I'm gonna have more to say on these. If you need some true wireless Bluetooth earbuds and you like staying in that kind of ecosystem, they've got a partnership with Harman. That's pretty cool. I like that a lot. If you're a real one and you want to talk premium audio quality and a portable Bluetooth DAC, then that will probably be longer lived than true wireless earbuds. So that's what that is. Oh, right. I'm way behind on the chat. Let me kind of catch up a little bit here. Dave Burns. Last year means poor, Juan. Especially if you're an iPhone user. You don't want iPhone 14, then you're poor. You should spend more money for a crappy phone like the iPhone 16e so you can show your friends you're less poor. From Gabaletta, it's sad because it just gets brushed off and they just go, well, Samsung makes something similar, which then I have to turn into the antagonist and go, no, there's nothing like this in the USA. Pick up a Xiaomi 14 Ultra. There's nothing like that in the USA. I was pitching an editorial for a big Android review site, and my editorial was talking about how the United States has fallen about 3 years behind the camera technology of international phones. And the person who I was working with as an editor was upset that I put in too much math, because I was talking about 1 over 1.3 inch type sensors and 1 inch sensors. And you see, those are numbers, and numbers are math. And I put in a couple numbers so that I could describe the sensor size differences and why that mattered. And that person who was my editor was upset because there was too much math. And they were upset because I also wasn't just praising the Pixel because they had purchased a Pixel because Pixels have the best cameras. And that's what you're getting for editorial. When I pull up some of the most immediate search results for Xiaomi 15 Ultra right now, and I get an editorial from The Verge talking about how it's so ugly, I get an editorial from an Android site saying it's the prettiest phone they've ever used, that's what you're getting. And that's why people like me are probably going to retire soon. Because I am so tired of trying to buck that trend. I am so tired of trying to put out testing data. I am so tired of trying to do camera deep dives and then getting like 50 views on YouTube. I have a brilliant review of some of the most gorgeous headphones I've ever heard in the $400 tier. And I should just be thankful that it got 1,000 views on a channel with 175,000 subscribers. It's tough not turning all this into just a big old pity party. Because, like, I guess that's what people want. I guess people Tech enthusiasts, especially, that's what they want. They don't want to be challenged. They don't want to be educated. They don't want to be lectured. There's nothing to do left except pat them on the head and say, yeah, whatever you bought is the bestest because you're neat. That's it. We're doomed. John Gow. iPhone Pros are the ugliest of them all, LOL. Oh, JFR, I wish it would happen. JFR says we need LG, HTC, and Motorola back to their roots, but LG doesn't have any kind of phone division. They'll never recreate it. HTC sold off all of their top talent, and they're not doing much. I mean, that's it. If you're in the United States and you're not interested and holding up OnePlus as a legit competitor in every conversation between Apple, Google, and Samsung and OnePlus, then that's it. You're done. There is no other competition. Competition is dead. It's not life support. It's not slowly bleeding. We lost BlackBerry. We lost LG. We've mostly lost Motorola. You're dead. It's dead. OnePlus is it. That is your premium tier phone competition in the United States outside of Apple and Samsung and Google trying to copy each other. It's bad. It's really bad. Fat Produce tablets are the best kitchen devices. So I've been streaming a ton of Plex in floating windows while pulling up pulling up recipes. Last night we tried a chopped cheese hoagie where I diced up some hamburger instead of strip steaks for a rough approximation of a Philly cheesesteak. It was pretty tasty. Lots of super fatty, and that's why I've got schmutz all over the bottom of my tablet because I was cooking and throwing and moving and shucking and jiving and lots of splatter. So lots of fatty splatter hit that Xiaomi. From Nick, I love using my tablet for work on the go because Nick, you have taste, and it seems like your solution in search of a problem is actually solving some problems. And the second, a tech reviewer says, "Oh, like tablets and foldables are just solutions in search of problems," but they are solving problems. It's the great thing. There was a J. Michael Straczynski run on Spider-Man, and Peter Parker gets rocked because he says, "With great power comes great responsibility." And then the person immediately retorts with, "Okay, but with great responsibility comes what?" And Peter Parker goes, "I don't know." Tablets are solutions in searches of problems. Great. That's accurate. All computing devices are. So what problems do they solve? But I mean, are they worth it enough? Well, you have shown me that you are negative interesting in this conversation and that you're basically just wasting everybody's time. And I will never consume your content or share it ever again. And I'll go to guys like TK Bay and iFixit and Hugh Jeffries, and I'll share their content instead of talking about the terrible content from other people. From Dave Burns, that -1 frame in Genshin Impact was intolerable, and I have to tell you, you must throw out that tablet. And man, if I see another benchmark with Genshin, it is so stupid. The game is so poorly optimized for Android. Oh, but it's a really popular game, and it's popular, and it's not played exclusively on mobile. It's popular because it's also on consoles and PCs. Anyway, uh, from Gabaletta, my Tab S6 is still my go-to travel computer because of DeX. For what I use it for, it is overkill. And that's the kind of longevity we should be getting out of these kinds of purchases. A good tablet, especially when you can use it in a more computery way, should easily be a 4-year purchase, a 5-year purchase. We're trying to make laptops more disposable. And no one's noticed, but our tablets have actually gotten really long-lived. Look, you can get a lot of mileage out of that premium tier purchase where it used to be you'd buy an expensive tablet and you'd want to flip it after 2 years anyway. Not anymore. Now it's actually a pretty reasonable computer competitor in terms of longevity. Oh, my browser is going really slow. Um, Nick Gay. So Apple wants to do a creator-focused Pro Max device, but Xiaomi has been in this space for so long. I swear, if it wasn't for support or repairability, I would buy Xiaomi every day and twice on Sunday. I'm interested to see, because now that I've updated the Xiaomi 15, I'm hoping it'll clear up some of my issues with network connections. It's dropping Wi-Fi bad, and the little time that I had a SIM card in there, I wasn't getting decent 5G speeds here in my neighborhood. I'm hoping to see that'll improve, but it seems like the Xiaomi 15 Ultra is carrying a lot of the North American bands, if not all of the North American carrier bands. And if that's true, if I eventually get my hands on a Xiaomi 15 Ultra, I might just run that as my main phone. I might just port everything over. I might just move it over. I love my OnePlus. The OnePlus 13 is a great, great high performance premium phone that undercuts Samsung and Apple and Google. But I really would just like to have all of my main personal communication stuff in the phone that also has the bestest cameras that I have access to. Because right now I tend to leave the house with the OnePlus 13 and a Vivo. Sometimes it's the Vivo X100, sometimes it's the Vivo X200. But I would like to see if I could just merge those and then talk about that experience better. Be pretty great. John Gow, we need that editorial published. I'm working on it. I've got lots of stuff on my plate right now. Uh, From Gabaletta, the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra and the Vivo X200 Ultra are looking to be camera monsters. And John Gao also following up, I'm so looking forward to the X200 Ultra, and I don't know if I'm going to get my hands on one. I'm going to try to. I really don't want to import one if I can help it, but we'll have to see how that goes. The thing that's kind of, it's making me a little anxious. The more I keep shooting on the X200 Pro, the more I really miss the main camera sensor on the X100 Pro. I adore the telephoto, and I'm really hoping that the Xiaomi 15 Ultra can give me that best of both worlds. The big old huge telephoto sensor increase and keeping that 1-inch type sensor. I would nudge. I tend to prefer Vivo. I would nudge Xiaomi back up to top pick if that was the split between those two devices. From Oliver, this is a fun question. Juan, have you used your Tank 3 recently? And if so, would you say its camera is still okay? So I still have the Tanks. Um, ugh, man, I have to be careful because if I drop one of these, I'll do crazy damage here in the Gadget Lab. So I still have both of the Tanks. I have not fired them up seriously since the fires in January. So the Tank, this is the Tank 3 Pro. So I had the Tank 3 Pro, and when we were really in the middle of that evac, I pulled my SIM card. What did I have it in? I think I pulled my SIM card out of the Pixel 9 because I was just getting into the iQOO, and I'd had the OnePlus 13 for a little bit, but I pulled it out of the Pixel 9 and I put it in the Tank so that I could have crazy, 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 stupid long battery life. And we went a couple days of evac without me having to worry about plugging this in. That's really the last time I fired it up. I have not used the cameras much since reviewing the phones initially. They have gotten updates. So now this is running Android 14, which is just kind of nice. I know we're a generation Android behind, soon to be 2 generations of Android behind. But the cameras are practical. They're functional. I don't I don't think I would ever put them in the conversation where you're really going to care about the composition and the quality and trying to do something really artistic with them, but you can drive them a little harder. You can get some good results out of them. They're just not That's not what the point of the device is. But I did. I leaned on this one pretty hard, and it's if I work with the 8849 team again, I think I'm going to change up my tone for their next video. I love pointing out how ludicrous this is as an appliance, But there I was in a pinch, a plume of smoke is billowing behind our condo, and we're getting an order to evacuate our neighborhood. And I picked up this phone and I put a SIM card in it, and then I just had a phone with like 6 days of battery life. Oh, maybe not that much, like 4 days of battery life. And it took this little bit of pressure off of my gadget support considerations as we were mobilizing two cars full of all of our most important stuff. So the next time I get a tank into review, I think I need to handle it with just a little more respect. It's still going to be made fun of. They are still ludicrous devices. But having one as the emergency backup phone, which could also charge other devices because of the incredible battery capacity, was kind of nice. It was kind of good. Um, Michael C. Yeah, I think you could easily argue the ecological downsides of ditching perfectly functional hardware is a bigger issue than security concerns of having a dated security patch. I'd agree with you there too. I feel even once you're off the support train, you still probably have another year or two on that product where if you're a reasonable consumer and you're not clicking on stupid stuff, that you're probably going to be fine. I hate this idea that it's like, oh, well, it's already end of life, and so now you're not safe if you use it. I guess sort of. There are exploits we have to be concerned about, but the likelihood of getting hit by something like I don't, I'm so exhausted. It's like I just need to make sure that I'm talking about this in a way that only makes this one brand popular sound good. Okay, I mean that's not how people are using these things, but sure. That's a real important data point for you. Oh, Aditya, it pains me too. Aditya says it pains me to see you not have any hopes for Sony, but I understand. I think we need to write Sony off. I think that ship has sailed. There was that window from like the Xperia 1 Mark III to the Xperia 1 Mark V where those were some of the best phones on the market. And from 6 on, I think they're pivoting. I think they're cutting corners. I think they're cutting costs. They're trying to keep their phone pricing high, so they're still making profits, but they're skimping on the features that made their phones unique. I think it's done, especially now that they've given up on North America too. I think it's over. Jeffrey Core. One, if Samsung does actually make a triphone fold, do you think this will hurt their tablet market? No. I think if Samsung makes a trifold and they advertise the heck out of it, it will probably improve Galaxy Tab sales. Foldables are not growing except for flip style. So if you have a flip style phone, then this form factor is doing a bit better. If you're looking at the market for mini folding tablet, consumers have not latched onto that idea. But anything that kind of gets more messaging out about slate style capabilities will trigger some consumers to kind of look. Oh, I saw this wacky Samsung and it's got it unfolds into a full size tab. You know what? Let me go look that up. It's how much money? Oh, I'm not going to buy that. I could buy like 4 phones for the same price. But Samsung also sells regular tablets, right? Well, let me see what they've got. It's a similarly powerful device, but I have a separate phone that's more durable and a separate tablet that's more durable. I bet you if Samsung puts hard marketing behind a trifold, it will improve Tab S sales, and it's not going to make any significant dent in the foldable market. I do not believe that this is the long term strategy. I really want to be more excited about foldables, but they come with way too many compromises. They're still way too fragile. They're still way too expensive. They solve problems and they do some things really well. When you need more screen real estate, you open it up, you've got more screen real estate. I miss having dual display. Dual display did that too, but foldables do that really well. But we've done such a piss poor job of educating consumers on why they might want high performance tablets. They're not going to turn to a $2,000 phone to fulfill that need. But they might look up the $2,000 phone and then see if I spend $1,000 on my phone and like $800 on a tablet, I get two computers. And I can keep the phone and share the tablet with my kid. If I try to share my $2,000 tablet with my kid, they might break my only computer. So I think that's kind of going to be the end run. I think a lot of manufacturers are kind of losing interest in the mini folding tablet. Even like OnePlus, it does not make economic sense for Oppo to ship a mini folding tablet to the United States again this year. The Open is still a brilliantly competitive foldable. It still has the best cameras on a foldable in North America. It is still more powerful than a Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Why? Why would you go with a Pixel 9 Pro Fold over an Open? Oh, but I like the Pixel processing. All right, you're buying an overall worse device. And the cameras on that thing are going to embarrass a Pixel, but sure. I guess you need to have the Pixel. Oh, Rory is getting a new Pixel 9 Pro XL for €900. That's not too bad. That's a pretty good deal. Again, I mean, for the 512, yeah, that's pretty good. Let's get this out of the way here. Raymond, is anyone else missing LG today? I missed my V30. It just did everything right. That was pretty great. I still like, I have the V60 right behind me, and I still trot it out every now and then and just go, sigh. This could have been what we had instead. From Aditya, the man just picked up 2 tanks. Man, I love technology. From Bradley, one foot has not recovered from that tank 3 drop. So the top of my foot is still a little tender. I busted up my heel pretty good, but that's not the tank's fault. So that's pretty rough. From Amaldi, I think I mispronounced your name. I apologize. Have you tried desktop mode recently in a phone with video output but no proper desktop mode in Android 14? I do have some commentary and some videos on that. I've been following with the Pixels, but now I'm trying to see, especially as we're getting into Android 15 devices, none of that has really changed. It is still totally bare bones. It's up to the manufacturer to add additional skin on top of just the basic framework. But at least on some of these devices, the basic framework is kind of functional again, where it was totally broken on Android 12 and Android 13. It's just really dire out there. It does not make any sense to me, especially a company like Vivo. I mean, they're not selling a ton of laptops. Just eradicate the laptop competition. Give me an X200 Pro that I plug into a monitor and turns into another computing experience. I do not understand. I know it is some cost, but if you actually advertise that and marketed it to the regions where that phone would sell, like India, that thing would go over so well. That would be a feature people would get excited about again, and the Dimensity 9400 is a laptop grade processor. Well, John Gao, to me, for a hypothetical X200 Ultra, I'd prefer a 1 over 1.3 inch type sensor with a longer focal length over a 1 inch type sensor with a wider. That's what the X200 Ultra is supposed to be. I understand that, and I'm not saying people shouldn't want it. I'm just saying every single time I pick up the Pros, the X100 Pro and the X200 Pro, I miss the X100 Pro's main camera. So, and Nick Gay, what are your thoughts on the 200 megapixel Samsung telephoto? The megapixels don't matter at all. Don't buy it because you want more pixels. Not why you buy it. But I will be, I'm hoping this week, but it might be early next week given my workload. I will be finally finishing up the Vivo X200 Pro camera deep dive, which has this new awesome super big telephoto sensor, and it is amazeballs. And it's amazeballs not because of the resolution. The resolution matters not at all to why this is so good. I'm catching up on a lot of these kind of features. Last Divine, I just hope someone comes back with a Surface or Pixel One Fold dual display. You buy a Pixel for call screening. Call screening is great, and you can get that on a Pixel A series. The communicator features that really make the Pixel a fun, unique, helpful experience can be had for like $500. I like if you want to do other things with your phones, we should be looking at what those other phones can do, not writing editorials on the biggest tech websites. That's an ugly camera arrangement. I looked at the back of the phone and it was like ugly. It was like not as pretty. Useless. Useless. Oh, Dave Burns, you got to go to a Jewish deli if you want more mega pickles in your life. Man, I'm at Brent's eating that pastrami. The pickles they serve are wild. So good. So good. Although it is kind of a toss up. I was thinking about maybe hitting the Italian deli today because they do these ridiculous cracked pepper turkey sandwiches that just kind of blow my mind. I'm getting real hungry. That means we got to wrap this show up. Simon says, Hypno, I am loving the super macro on the X200 Pro. It makes me so crazy. That is a part of my OnePlus 13 camera conclusion that you can read up on, and why I kind of prefer the OnePlus 12 cameras just a little bit over the OnePlus 13. So good. But yeah, anytime I need to take a photo of something close up, actually, it is a little bit of a toss up because I do have a macro lens attachment. So when I get real nerdy, like, hey man, I've got to get something analytically, scientifically macro close to a product or a review. I have camera threads. So this plate comes off of my Xiaomi 13. So here's what you got to do. Here's when you know you're really in deep on phone photography. The 1-inch type sensor is too shallow. The depth of field is too shallow. So if you put a macro lens on top of the 1-inch type sensor on the Xiaomi 13, it is like less than the width of a human hair can be in focus until you stop it down. So you get that macro lens and you screw it into your attachment here, because I have a little filter thread here, and you screw that in, and then you stop the lens down, and it is delivering some of the best macro photos I've taken my entire life. Like on proper DSLR macro lenses, like 100mm macros, those f2.8s, even to some of like, I will use extension tubes on my micro four thirds cameras to get really up close and take good photos. And I would take this setup over my mirrorless camera almost any day. It's only like when I've got to push into like low light macro, which I'm not really doing that for my reviews and stuff. Because I can always get like a little mini LED panel, light up the subject a little bit better, come in close, and then get super, super close with that arrangement. And it only works because I can stop down the lens on the Xiaomi 13 Ultra. I will not be able to do that on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. It's not going to work. It kills me. It kills me because it's like we kind of keep doing this like one step forward, one step back, 2 steps forward, 1.5 steps back. So yeah, let me take one more drink of water and then we're going to close out this show. I meant to talk more about MWC. There were other things that happened at MWC. Apologies. I might cut that from the title of the podcast. So, folks, lots of stuff coming down the pipe, and I'm really going to be working to push things out to the Patreon first. I've been very disappointed in how YouTube has handled a number of my recent videos, how they've published, gotten like no traffic. Written reviews, I want to be writing more than turning every little topic into another video that underperforms on YouTube. I think we're really at that precious time. It's like I've got to start making some bigger career decisions on how to keep this stuff going. And I think I've been shown properly. Like YouTube only wants to care about my channel if I'm only going to hype beast the trendingest topic of the day. And I can't work like that. It takes me too long to test a phone. Like, if you want to know what these things can really do, I've got to run those tests. If you don't care, I guess I kind of need to hear it on the Patreon that we should stop doing the video edits and the podcast mixing and the RAR file compression and the photo, and I'll stop doing it. But people say they want me to do that work, and then I don't get any traffic for it. So it's like people say they want to know I've done the work, but then I see no benefit, and people still argue with me about what matters in phone performance. And that's really not sustainable. So I'm really trying not to turn my whole channel into headphone reviews. But I might need to just, like, for my own mental health, turn my channel into nothing but headphone reviews. I've got some other fun stuff coming out. I've got a smart chessboard. I'm going to be doing a video on that. I might come out tomorrow. I've got the Xiaomi tablet I'm going to follow up on. I'm probably only going to do a write-up on the Xiaomi buds, the Xiaomi earbuds. But there are a few other things that I'm still under embargo on. I've got another headset in that I think will be really fun to talk about. I'm going to be revisiting that Hover Air drone because I still think it's one of the absolute best solo pilot vlogging style cameras you can buy today. And I really want to, like, showcase, like, hey, it's gotten some updates, it's gotten some firmwares, it does this new mode, like you can fly a drone indoors. It's really cool what this company's been doing. And I think, again, DJI is more popular, so everyone's going to say it's not worth buying because DJI has made a drone that kind of rips them off. But Hover Air did it first. So shouldn't we celebrate the company that took the real risk on a self gesture based flying drone and not just say, but DJI has one now, so don't buy anything not DJI. And we do this, we only allow for one brand to be competitive in the market. And I'm telling you, I think the Hover Air is better than the DJI. So let's do it. Oh, and I also got some new solar panels for my battery. Again, we were talking about, like, disaster tech prep with the tank phone, so I got to trot those out when I get a good clear day. Because every time I've got time in the middle of my day to wheel out the solar panels, it's hazy or it's overcast, and I really want to see what these things can do. So, everybody, have a phenomenal week. MWC, support the content creators that are out there doing cool stuff. TK Bay, out in Barcelona right now for your viewing entertainment. Share his stuff. I've noticed, this is adorable, and please keep doing this, but I've noticed people will go to my private chat in Patreon and my private Discord and then say, look, TK has a new video. And that's awesome. But try maybe also, like, go into Threads or Facebook or Bluesky or Twitter if you're still on Twitter or Mastodon and, like, share outside of the people who already are pals with TK Bay. It's just that kind of thing. It's like awesome. I'm really glad people are posting TK's video links in my private Discord. I'm not telling you to not do that, but I'm just saying if you're really trying to support these channels, what TK needs are people who don't already know how awesome his videos are. So, have a phenomenal week. Stay tuned. More to come. Lots of videos. The smart glasses video. More stuff is coming out, and we'll bring it back next week. We're into March. We're already 1/6 of the way through 2025. So, folks, it is wild out there. It is crazy out there. It is very frustrating out there, and I need all of you to just keep your heads on straight, keep your heads down. Just focus on getting through the day, focus on that mental health, focus on the physical health to back up the mental health. And we'll catch you back here next week. There's going to be another episode, more news to cover, some follow-ups on what's going on. We can maybe break down if there were any other really big announcements. Lenovo has some stuff that I think might be kind of interesting to take a look at once I've seen other reviewers talk about it just from the MWC show floor. And we'll circle back. I'll try and do an actual real recap on MWC next week. Why don't we do that? So have fun, be safe, take care of yourselves so you can keep being good tech neighbors and taking care of other people around you. I'll catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe, take care. I'll catch you back. I love you all.